Hello, everybody. Sorry for the delay, few minutes. I'm really happy to see you here, everybody online, colleagues, friends, and such a wonderful opportunity. Thanks, Rob, again, for your time and efforts. My topic today is a topic that's been discussed already, and it's becoming more and more powerful in our century. We're going to talk about reflection and the importance of reflection in the trainer's room and in the EFL room. Well, let me start the slides with a picture from a very famous quote. Next, Rob. This picture reminds us so much about the details, and the details that are really small and they're really big. And what Dennis Diderot says here is that there are three principal means of acquiring knowledge: observation of nature, reflection, and experimentation. Observation reflects facts. Reflection combines them all together. And experimentation verifies the result of that combination. Well, I always remind my students that thinking of nature and thinking of this landscapes that we see every day gives us also an idea of how important reflection is. And of course, reflection doesn't work per se. We need to combine it in parallel with other factors such as observation. And observation requires as well experimentation. We cannot just observe and sit and observe without trying things ourselves. What is beautiful about the EFL classroom is that there's so many things happening at the same time, so many issues, so many topics, so many learning needs that we face. But practicing the art of observation makes us really relax and calm down. Next. In the training room, we teach, we reflect, and we share feedback with each other as teachers. And sometimes if we're really successful, we change attitudes, we change perceptions of teachers. And this involves lots of reflective practice. This involves lots of inner reflection, individual reflection, and group as well. So we sit together in groups, whether small groups, big groups, and we practice observation. We learn how to observe and to open the window of knowledge around us. As I said before, this doesn't work in, one-shot method. We need to do it every day. We need to encourage teachers to speak out, and we need to encourage the introverts to be open and to discuss their own opinions, their own issues, but definitely we need some space and time to practice this. Next, please. Nobody can talk about reflection without mentioning David Kolb's learning cycle. It's an asset, it's a base. Whether in the language classroom, any language classroom, in any practice. So according to David, he starts the cycle with experience, with practicing concrete experiences, and then moves to reflection. And once we move to reflection, we could then go further with analysis, thinking of the why and the how behind things that are happening around us. And of course, the more we reflect and the more we dig deeper into our analysis, the more we're able to reach to the final stage, which is making a change. And I always give my trainees another word for this. I re-describe the whole cycle here by talking to them about planning actions. The whole result, the whole outcome is that we need to come up with something to make a change. There's so much happening in this world, so much racism, so much, things that are really not working well. So we need to encourage our students as well that we need to have more actions. We need to come out with something that could make impact, whether it's on our communities, on our societies, and this has to go through steps. Now, from this cycle, we as trainers talk about the DAGBA. DAGBA is that D stands for describe. We describe actual things that are happening, whether they're issues, conflicts, problems. We describe them in depth, which means that we provide evidence, we provide details. And what usually happens is that people jump into conclusions or jump into their emotional reactions and start analysis. So we're always reminding and raising awareness that we need to really take it slowly, not to analyze, before we describe. So the DACPA framework works really wonderful with David Kolb's learning cycle as well. D stands for describe, and then we move to A, which is analyze. We dig deeper with our senses. We say why, how, and we try to find out what created this issue, this conflict, this problem, or even the story of success. How did it work well, and what helped it? And the biggest questions, the key questions that I encourage my students to use is what helped and what hindered, whether it's a learning experience or it's an issue. DA, and then we move to G. G stands for generalize. So general assumption and creating general beliefs comes a little bit later. So we need to slow down here in our process of reflection and give time to each stage, not to generalize before we get to analyze, before we get to make sure that we have described what and how and why. And after the G in DACPA, we come with the PA, which is action plans. Next. I have used several tools, and these notebooks actually are great tools that worked really well. It just, fosters note-taking and providing more evidence. The funny thing, and that happens usually, is that nobody wants to write their reflections. Everybody just wants to speak it out and jump to, conclusions and provide their emotional feelings, as I mentioned before. So taking time in reflection and to really celebrate how powerful reflection is, we need tools. And writing in notebooks, as you see here, I have 2 blue arrows here showing that these notebooks actually weren't enough. We had to add extra papers in these notebooks. So it turned out to be really a very effective tool. And what we do usually with teachers in local schools or in public schools or in private schools, we do practice lots of observation. And as you see, the word observation is mentioned in most of them because it is the key for successful reflection. We need to observe. We need to learn how to observe. And even myself, I've been learning every day from my colleagues. And I've been learning actually how to really take it slowly, divide it into small tasks, and that we do not observe everything altogether. We need to observe small details. And of course, the more we have details, the more we have evidence, and then we can talk and provide our perceptions. Next, please. Imagine your classroom. Imagine your language classroom, or imagine any subject you are teaching. We need to really give daily reflective practice routines, not just for the fact that we need to practice it as a skill, but we need to obtain rapid skill development. Reflection helps us reach out with our voice to other communities. And in order to be able to reflect on our issues, on each other's issues, we need to slow down. And this picture really reminds us of how time and how space are so important. We need to slow down before giving our judgments. We need to really make sure that every person, every learner takes his or her time in order to learn a skill. So imagine if it's about creating your own reflection. Reflection doesn't happen just in one day. It takes time and time and time, and some people need more time than others. And again, I was one of these people. I was one of these people who was learning how to practice reflection by really focusing on time. Time is important and space is important. We need to give each other space and not to jump on each other's when we give our opinions, when we give our judgments, in order to create global citizenship atmospheres. Next. Of course, in any context we are training or teaching, we have different opinions, different ideas. And what I usually remind my students is that it's really good, it's really healthy to disagree. We do not need to always agree. We do not need to agree with each other. We don't need to agree with our teacher. So we're celebrating diversity here. And this photo really reminds me of how important having different opinions, and honestly, reality can be so complex that equally valid observations from differing perspectives, it can appear to be contradictory sometimes. As you see here, two people, one of them says these are 3 sticks, the other one is saying 4 sticks. And if you put yourself in their shoes, both are correct. So let us try to celebrate diversity, different thinkings, different ideas. And again, here, reflection helps us really appreciate these differences, whether we agree together or disagree. We need to think deeply and critically. And of course, again, the more deeper we think, the more critical the thinking is.